Would you trust a product just by reading about it? Probably not. Welcome to the Donovan Digital Podcast, where we explore strategies and insights to help the AEC industry build brand awareness, spark engagement, and establish authority with their target audience. Today's episode is all about bridging the gap, specifically between building product manufacturers and the architecture and design community. I'm thrilled to welcome Diana Darling, president and co-founder of AN Media Group, which publishes the architect's newspaper, AN Interior, and Best of Design. Additionally, the group has the Facade Plus Symposium events and CE Strong, an interactive online continuing education platform. I first met Diana back in 2004 when I was VP of Marketing at Oldcastle Glass. At that time, the architect's newspaper was a bold new voice in the industry, sharp writing, strong design, and a clear New York perspective. Diana has since expanded that vision into multiple publications and educational events throughout North America. Diana, thanks so much for joining me. I know you are crazy busy with everything you have going on, so I really appreciate you taking some time to talk a little shop. To kick things off, for those who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how AN Media Group came to be?
Thank you, Sean. I'm so excited to be here. You know, we've known each other a long time. And that's one thing I love about this industry is the relationships you build and the longevity of those relationships as people move around and advance in their own careers. So my background was in retail marketing. I was working for marketing departments in major retailers for 20 years. And I always wanted to have my own business. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And my husband and spouse at the time, Bill Minking, was an architectural historian and had been writing for a publication in the UK called Building Design. And the editor of that, who now runs World Architecture Festival, which is having their first event in the United States in the September, named Paul Finch, suggested that we start a publication like Building Design in the United States. And Bill and I were like, okay, why don't we try it? And I thought, all right, I know how to print. I know how to buy paper. I know how to do budgets. I'm really good with numbers. And Bill was on the editorial side, had all the connections that way. I knew about circulation. So I just didn't really know how to sell advertising, which is something I still think I'm not that good at, but something I had to learn. And that's how we started. We raised a little bit of money, not very much. And it was, you know, in those early days, it's one of those things, if you knew now what you know, you probably You probably wouldn't have done it.
Right.
It was lean, very lean for many years. It was very stressful.
I can imagine. I think all of us who started businesses to some extent have experienced that. And but what I really loved about the Architect's newspaper back then and even still today is really the quality of the writing and the focus that you guys have. And it's amazing how you've really expanded that to what you are today, which is really much more than just the Architect's newspaper, right?
Right. You know, when we began, I think it was, we started in 2003 and knew that we needed to start some kind of an event. You can't really be profitable, sustain a print-only publication, business rather. So we came up with this idea in 2012 through a series of relationships and conversations that formulated Facades Plus. It kind of started out as something else called collaboration. And we went with that name for maybe a half of a year, and then we changed it to Facades Plus. But that was something that really put us on the map. And we've kind of owned in the United States and in North America now for 13 years. And I've been very proud of that, the work that we do on Facades Plus, because I think it brings a lot of people into the paper and into our web stories and into our social media. It all integrates together. The Architect's newspaper audience drives Facades Plus audience. We are experts in putting together people and looking at themes and topics that are relevant. Doing this over 13 years, obviously things have changed, and new ideas come on board. And so we're always, I think that's what keeps it fresh every year, is that different codes are implemented in different cities, and we talk about those things, and we talk about with people regionally about what's happening in their area. And I think that's important for practitioners who are trying to learn what is happening and what their colleagues are doing. And I think they walk away with, inspired and new design processes and information about manufacturers or, facade consultants or a fabricator or a contractor, whatever. It's just the whole team comes together to talk about that.
And it's a great event, and I think it's fair to say you spawned a few competitors as well, since you have started and shown the success of that format.
Yes, we're always fighting them away. One, they left the United States early on, but we always have people over our shoulder that we're trying to stay one step ahead of.
Right, right. Well, this ties perfectly into kind of our theme on this topic, which is really kind of bridging the gap with building product manufacturers and architects, and it's one of our main themes in what we do and how we help companies. But it's really, how do you make that engagement as a building product manufacturer with the architectural community and just either introducing your products and ultimately educating them and getting them specified. And that's the beauty, I think, of Facades Plus. It seems like that's an area that's very successful in doing that.
It's interesting because I'm a homeowner that's always working on my house as well as a business owner, and I just have this little story to tell. So I have a siding issue, and I have a shingle house, and I went out a couple of weeks ago, and they were putting Tyvek underneath my house, underneath the shingles. Yep. But they weren't taping anything. And from sitting in these conferences for 13 years, I know that they should be taping. And I just know a little bit enough to cause trouble. So I actually told them not to continue. I lost complete trust in what they were doing. Called in a contractor, and I'm talking to him about what he would use. And he says, I just used felt. I'm old school. And I started talking to him about a product that I saw in my local building product store. And I was like, oh, that product is so interesting and so unique and different. I don't see it being used very often out here. And he's like, I would never use that. He said, I'm old school and I don't believe that you should be doing this. I don't think you should be putting a barrier between your shingles and your house and letting moisture get in there. So I'm like, okay, it's so interesting because the people that have the boots on the ground that are actually doing this work, right, you have to convince them. And, I called a couple of architect friends to say, what do you guys think I should be doing? And they gave me their opinion, but it's a very complicated selling process. I understand that. So all I can do is put all these people together in one room and let them sort it out and let the manufacturers tell their best story and show the projects that they've worked on. And, just try to look at what is out there and who's using what and encourage editorial to support that as well.
And I think that's what's really interesting, though, because we always talk about creating opportunities for engagement, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about with Facades Plus and even some of your other platforms where, you're really just trying to create that network opportunity, right? And but education is a big part of it, right? And what is your feeling on AIA continuing education? I know at least Facades Plus, that's a big part of it, right? Having it accredited so architects get credit.
Yeah, those are all accredited events that we put on. We also have our CE Strong platform. Thanks to you, Sean. Sean and I originated that with an idea that didn't really take off. We thought, oh, we'll create an app. Everybody wants to use an app.
Right, right.
they don't really want to use an app. They want to be in front of their computers and work the way they've always worked. But I think that platform is good. It's very competitive out there with people
Yes.
offering CE courses, but I think that we run a very tight ship. It's very organized. Things go out on time. We train people to come online. And the Zoom platform is amazing to be able to offer that. And we get an amazing turnout. Whether it's on landscape ideas or interiors or facades. We we put it out there and make these relationships. Technology, we have very successful technology CEUs. So I'm pretty happy with how that all plays out and
Right.
comes into our business and the relationships we have and can offer to people that believe in the AN's audience.
Let's talk a little bit about how you help building product manufacturers reach architects beyond kind of live events, because I know you guys you offer email campaigns, you have banner ads. I mean, obviously print with advertising. I mean, you guys really have a whole portfolio depending on what the client's either comfortable with or the direction they want to go to get their word out. Can you talk a little bit about the mix that you have that you offer the building product manufacturers for that brand awareness engagement opportunity?
Well, everything is about leads, and whether it's an email campaign and we're pushing out your message, you get leads. If you are participating in a live event, you get leads. If you run banner ads, we give you all the analytics. So once you get the leads, you really have to know how to nurture those. And, you might stick them into your email buckets that you have for maybe that region or whatever, but there's got to be follow-up. And that's something we don't know what's happening on that end. Once we
Right,
give you
right.
those names, they have to know how to work those leads. And I think there's a lot of work. Some people are better than others. Some people have it all down. They know what to do. They're very sophisticated. And some people don't. We find out after a year of going through a campaign with somebody that we've given tons of leads to, they're like, yeah, but your leads didn't work. And we're like, well, how do you know they didn't work?
Right.
What are you doing? We don't know what we're doing, what they're doing. So it is about developing, it's okay. You've got to build brand awareness. You can't nobody knows who you are if you're not putting something in a print campaign, right? When you just think of your own self and how you become familiar with the brand, you see it online, you see it in a magazine, you see it on TikTok or LinkedIn or whatever. And so it's a touch point across all of these platforms. And we have something called an omni-channel platform buy, where you're getting a little bit of all of that. You get a little print, you get a little digital, you get a little social media. And it's important to be across all those platforms.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I was just thinking it's really about being omnipresent. And then you said you've got the package with the omni. So that's absolutely true. And I think what a lot of companies struggle with is, we have this budget. And instead of thinking beyond it as an investment, many times they think of it as an expense, right? The people know what they're doing, they think through it, they understand it's an investment. But the irony, to your point, is when people say, oh, it's not working and they're judging it based on new sales, but yet they're not following through on the back end with the leads and really evaluating that instead of evaluating the investment they're making on the ads or the promotions. And I think that's a tricky part for a lot of companies. I think a lot of them don't know how to do it. And I think the ones that do are the ones that understand it and the ones probably that continue to invest with companies like yourself.
Right, right. Because all we can do is garner an audience by having great editorial. And we know that the eyeballs come to us because we put things out there first. We go places other people won't go because we're an independent media company and there's hardly any of those left. I might be the only one.
Really?
Well, if you think about it, Records owned by a corporation. Art Products is owned by a corporation. Um, Building Design Construction is a corporation. They don't
Yeah,
write
yeah, no,
news
you're
and
right.
information. So we can say things that other people won't say. So that's what people want to know. They want to, it's a trusted source. And so we know we have the eyeballs for people looking for the trusted source. And so then we can share the things they need. And this is something I say in every facade conference. You can design a building, but you got to have products to build it.
Right.
So go
Right.
ahead and talk to those guys. It's all symbiotic. You have to have them to do the work that you do.
And not only that, there's so many new technologies and new products that are out there. And if you aren't in that loop of continually being connected with the manufacturers and being educated, I think you're really missing out. And from my experience, we always see architects being very risk adverse by nature. So it's like, you got to prove it to me before I consider using it. And again, that's where we get involved. A lot of companies is trying to do the case studies and show products that are working, that are new out there. But it's always kind of a tricky thing because if it's really new, you got to find that first few projects, right? Particularly in the glass and glazing side, with some of these new
Yeah, exactly.
technologies. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and I'm guessing in your Facade Plus, there's a lot of that discussion on new technologies and some of the new products are coming to market.
there is. And we give, an opportunity for manufacturers to be on the stage and you know, I see things all the time that I fall in love with, a product that I fall in love with, and sometimes it takes them a year or two to come on board. But somebody like Reson Timber, I just loved that product. And we talked to them and talked to them, and finally they started coming to the conferences, I think maybe just last year. I'm not
Mm.
sure. I don't know for sure. But anyway, I mean, I know that these are the kind of products that architects love. I was in Bajar Gingel's office 5 years ago, and I see Reson Timber sitting in their products library. And I'm like, hey guys, I know architects love your product. You should be talking to them through us, because we talk to all those people. So, it's a fun thing. That's what's fun for me, is finding these products and trying to share them with our community.
So you work with some pretty good sized companies in the industry, and what have you seen where some of these companies have been successful working with your group and really getting the word out to architects? Are they kind of this omnipresent where they're doing a variety of things, or are they heavy on print? Are they heavy on the facades? Where do you see the success on the building manufacturers working with your group and connecting with architects?
Well, there's a company that we work with out of Texas, and they don't do print with us. I don't even think they do digital. They come to the conferences, but they're really good at working a show. They're on their feet, they're out there talking, they come in a day ahead of time, they make meetings, they have great projects to show, and they do really well. I know they've grown their business a lot through participating with us. Um, and, for bigger companies that people know who they are, I think they're always coming out with new products. So it's good to just keep the audience aware and up to date on, we've got this new window with the new framing system or new whatever it is. So they do press releases, and we write about them. They end up in our facades special sections or our glass sections. But we're always trying to, keep the audience aware of new things.
A lot of the content that you guys write, obviously, are typically high profile projects or high profile architects, and a lot of great content and articles written about it. How do you guys go through that process of, okay, and I know this may get into more of a question with the head of editorial and chief editor here, but how are you choosing projects that you guys write about and getting really this content you guys create?
Well, it's interesting because after Bill, editors all have relationships with different groups of architects, right? So Bill had his people that came to him that he connected with, that fed him stories, and they were at a certain level, maybe more older and more established. Jack, who's in his mid 30s, has a completely different set of
Yeah.
people that he's attached to. So he's getting stories and people are feeding him information, and his interest and what we run are different. And it's real, he likes to support up and coming designers. And for manufacturers, that's really important because, we have people aging out, retiring, changing positions, and you want to be attracting people who are starting out and looking for new products, new relationships. And so that's something that I think is kind of unique to us now in the past couple of years with Jack coming on board. And it's interesting just to see that difference. I mean, I can tell the difference. I get pitches all the time and I just pass them to edit. I do see certain things, probably more on the product side that I'm like, we have to run this. We have to run this. He may not like it, but I'm like, I really want you to run this. So I have a little bit of influence, but
Yes, that's good.
I do have a little, and people are like, well, you're the CEO. Why can't you just tell them what to do? And I'm like, well, that's not really the way it works.
Right.
I have certain amount of things that I can say, I want you to do this, but it doesn't, I want him to feel like he's got the voice and it really represents the way he thinks and feels.
Right.
But there's lots of projects all over. And, the other mandate that we have is that from the beginning, it was American architects working in the United States and working abroad. And so when I tend to see too many international projects coming in, I'm like, guys, the manufacturers are here and they're not supplying products to, Europe.
Right.
They're supplying products to American architects.
Yeah.
So, there's lots of different, it's interesting, just all the different variables when you're looking at putting out media in the way that we do across all these different platforms.
So since you kind of touched on your role, how active are you with the publication these days? Are you kind of more in the back seat? I know as CEO, obviously you're overlooking everything, but from a hands-on standpoint, are you still pretty active with the business or do you have other
Probably
interests?
too much. No. I have a weekly meeting. I look at every facades event that we're doing and they present to me and I'm like, hey, maybe we've got too much we're presenting in the morning and then and let's switch some things to the afternoon. So I'm looking at everything, especially on the interior side with our A&N Interior magazine, because to me, that's more a little bit like fashion and you want to make sure that you got it right because it's more critically looked at than the architect's newspaper. The architect's newspaper, I kind of let that run on its own. We have these focus product sections in every issue. So I'm more involved in that aspect of it, not so much in the editorial. On the A&N Interior side, I'm a little bit more involved in the editorial. I mean, I go through, I look at all the design, we just sent our latest issue to press this week and it's our 10th anniversary for A&N Interior. So,
Okay, wow.
Yeah, holy cow. So I'm pretty hands-on with that. I think I focus a lot on, obviously on advertising sales, looking at branding, the way we present ourselves in different capacities, and then making relationships. For example, we're having a 10th anniversary party at a showroom in Soho on May 14th. So I've been working on that. We're participating in a new trade show in Manhattan called Shelter, and we're putting together a library with different manufacturers, interior manufacturers. So I've been spearheading that. AIA, we're going to that event, and we have a booth, and we'll put together something for that. But I try to look at the big picture and in the relationships that we have with PR companies, with opportunities that might be out there. For example, this thing that we're doing at Coverings coming up is something that is a little unique and different than what we've done in the past, which is go into a show and put on an event within an existing trade show.
Okay, this is the one in Orlando, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So one of the questions that we have a lot throughout our podcast, since it's affected everybody, is since COVID, how has things really changed, or have they? and how you communicate and how you do particular events. What are some of the changes that, for good or for bad, that you've seen as a result of COVID? Has there been a big shift or not so much?
I don't think there's a shift in how, well, yeah, there's a couple of things. There is a shift. During COVID, everybody was doing virtual and it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, this is a whole new paradigm for us. And look at the margins. We can make so much
Right,
money.
right.
And then poof, it all went away.
Yeah.
People got exhausted from it. They don't want to do it anymore. We do a couple of virtual events, but I think the continuing education works really, really well on virtual. That was something that came out of COVID. Um, this year, I feel like in 2025, everything just ramped up to like pre-COVID levels in terms of people doing events and making things happen and just being out there, pushing, pushing, pushing. It just seems the energy this year has been a little off the charts
Mm,
with manufacturers, with showrooms in New York, things like that. In terms of how we do editorial, I don't think that it changed that much with COVID,
yeah.
you know. And I'm trying to think in terms of manufacturers, I don't really know how they think. I think reaching their audience is harder for them because I was talking to a manufacturer who's based in New Jersey. They were talking to somebody at a big firm in New York. They'd been talking for a couple of months and they said, hey, why don't I come in and we can have a meeting? And they're like, oh no, I'm not in New York. I work in Arkansas. I think that still exists. I think there has been people that have said you've got to come back into the area you've worked. I'm not quite sure about that. So there is, a lot of just trying to keep your list clean, make sure you're going to the right people. There's, that's a heavier lift than it used
Yeah,
to be.
yeah, for sure. Since our audience, we have a lot of folks, marketing, sales leaders listening to this podcast. Is there any advice that you can share as far as connecting with the architectural audience? I mean, we talked about a lot of things that people can do. Any advice on if somebody was like, "Hey, you know what? We've been very unsuccessful in connecting with the architectural community. What should we be doing moving forward?"
Again, I think you have to use all these touch points. You need to be not just doing one thing, but you need to be doing multiple things, whether it's a banner in an e-newsletter, whether it's a white paper, whether it's a print ad, or, going to a live event somewhere. You have to use all these touch points because you're talking to an audience that is inundated with a lot of people coming at them and wanting them to use their product. The other thing is to understand like who the architects are. A lot of time they think of themselves as artists. They want to be inspired by what they see. And you can't put something out that looks like it might be pulled from your brochure. If it's in an interior design magazine, it needs to look like it's interior design. You might have a crossover product. You might be going into a new area, but look at what other people are doing and try to assimilate similar to what they're doing so that people are inspired by what you're putting out there. Beautiful photography, interesting words, not too much text. You don't need to sell them everything in whatever you're putting out. You just want to drive them to your website so they can see more.
Yeah, I
So
think
that,
it's an interesting dilemma of sorts because you want to hit that creative side, right? But at
right.
some point, once you capture their attention, it does get technical at some point, right? Yeah, I mean, you got to get to the point where they need the
Capture their
details.
attention first, right?
Right, but that's right, and I love that advice because we do that a lot with our clients. Is listen, you got to grab them visually because if you don't grab them visually, you're not going to get them on the technical side,
Right,
and that's where it all starts. Even the architectural folks that are on the engineering technicals, they're still drawn in by the beauty of it all, right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But it's been an interesting journey. It's our 22nd year. And I am happy that I did this and have feel like I've offered something back to the community by creating the Architects newspaper, which has
yeah.
been a unique voice, for a long time. And I'm very proud of what we do.
Yeah, and you should be, and I would be one of those that would be on that bandwagon. And this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that we didn't talk about I think might be of value to our audience?
Yeah, I would love to know insights of what you hear out there. You're sort of talking more to manufacturers and trying to help them on a different side. Do you feel like what I said resonates, or do they have a different story about what they're experiencing or the challenges they have?
Yeah, it's funny because it does certainly vary by product and manufacturer, but I think as a whole, I think the challenge is consistent that they want to get in front of the architects, get them ultimately to specify their products. So there's again that technical side, we want to get in those specs, but what we keep telling them is you got to get in front of their eyes before you get behind the computer and get into the specs. And the other thing is that, we find with a lot of our companies is that we're always fighting the dollars. We said, listen, you have to invest. You have to invest to get the awareness. And it can't just be one thing. I mean, to the points that you're making. And so that's our biggest challenge as an agency, trying to convince that. At the same time, we want to make sure that we can do all the daily things they need, the social media posts, some of the mundane stuff that we feel is necessary, but it's not enough in many cases. And the challenge we have is convincing them, hey, you need to invest in building your brand. And some people get it, and some people don't, and some people are kind of in between and have to be really swayed one way or the other. And
Right.
we want to get them in front of people like yourself because again, that's where the awareness is going to be built, and on publications and formats where people go, where people listen to people, and quite honestly, when we started this podcast, I started listening to podcasts. I wasn't a big podcast person. I said, man, these are really great because you get good insight and you get some perspective, and it's an easy listen, right? No one's really trying to sell or pitch. It's more dialogue.
Right. Yes.
And I try to convince clients of that too. That approach, you got to get away from selling. You can't sell. You got to solve problems. And we try to convince that upon our clients that it should be all about the problems you solve and not about the features and benefits. And that's kind of our belief and how we try to help our clients in that capacity.
Yeah, that's a great message. Because that is what it is, really. Yeah, I'm just thinking back to all the products that I buy. I always try to look at my personal projects and what I'm
Right.
trying to do on my house and how it relates to this bigger world. And I just, it's complex. It's very
Yeah.
complex, putting these projects together, and you need all the experts together that you can to make a good building.
Right. I heard something one time said, people don't like to be sold, but people like to buy. And in our world, that buy is probably specified, but at the end of the day, people feel like they're being sold to. They don't like to be sold to, right? And it's not that they don't like to buy; they just don't like to be sold to. And until they're ready, right? And
Right,
I see that
right,
even as a consumer. If somebody comes up to me, I'm not ready, but when I'm ready, I need somebody to help me. I got questions. Now I can talk to you, right?
right.
So, wow. Okay. Well, Diana, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. So if our audience wants to get in touch with you or learn more about Architects Newspaper, Facade Plus, CE Strong, or any other publications, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Just send me an email, ddarling@archpaper.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah.
They can always go to the website too, I would
They can
assume.
always go to the website, check it out, archpaper.com, cestrong.com, fasadesplus.com. There's about 6 of them. And come to a conference
Yes.
in a city near you.
There you
Coming to
go.
near you.
And there will be one near them. I know how
Exactly.
you've got everything covered. So
Exactly.
that's great. So with that, thanks for tuning in to the Donovan Digital Podcast, where we help you build authority, engage with your target audience, and grow your brand in the design and built environment. We will see you next time.
Thank you, Sean. It was really a lot of fun.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Diana.